Okay, rulers, settle down. Ruler School is brought to you by Odyssey Games, where you can go to get singles for all your Force of Will and other trading card games, as well as these amazing patrons. Special thanks to guest lecturer member Vite Ramen. Thank you for your support. Class is in session. Hey the rulers, DMO73 here, bringing you the deck profile for Dolly Faria. But before we get into that, just a reminder once again that Odyssey still has pre-orders available for the 7th, the set to come out next month. You can check it out in both pre-release kits or main set boxes. Check them out in the link in the description to get those before they are sold out. So let's jump into Fari Dahlia. So the whole idea of this is the fact that Dolly allows us to be able to make stranger choices non-randomly, and Faria, being blue-white, has some of the best counter meta strangers, but also has the easiest access to Grand Cross reincarnation, which makes use of off-color strangers very effectively. And so the idea of being able to use that consistently and set up really cool locks with Dolly, especially with regards to things like Lena Swish, just gives you a lot of pressure to kind of almost have a stun list. And so we're playing a Regalia list. This is updated from the list that you saw me play earlier this week. We did some changes based on some testing and kind of what experience there, what we felt kind of was not really necessary, and what we could shore up the deck to maybe even make it actually a competitive list in this meta. So obviously we're playing Faria, Stranger 10, we have that ability to draw cards, destroy rested resonators, paying 0 to do judgment. Really one of the other reasons to go for Faria 2 is because we're playing 4 copies of the Road to the Sacred Queen, which bringing stuff in tapped is actually really relevant right now, as well as it's a free stranger right off the gate, so you can get that Grand Cross turned on very effectively. This also is really nice if if you see a Violet list not finding their Aegis, suddenly a Bahamut's not going to be able to swing the turn it enters, just all kinds of cool stuff. Stone base wise, we're running 4 Light Vapors, 4 Stone of the Six Sages, and 2 Adoraktia's Memoria. We essentially want 10 white-blue sources with the ability to play other colors for things like some of our strangers if we have to, so that's why we're playing that setup. Going into the strangers list real quick, let's go over some pretty quick basic ones. We're playing 2 Hinokana Suchi because it's a board wipe, which is insane. Also deals 10 damage to your opponent's face, which is nice. 2 copies of Blue Wizard. Just now realizing that my screen's not going to show you. We're playing a single copy of Loki. Blue Wizard, to go back to it, being able to cancel automatic abilities is pretty huge right now. We don't really have a good way to do that, and so Blue Wizard is nice because we can also cast it off of Excalibur while still leaving Will open for a Sword Art. Loki, just as a one-of. We don't want to hit it too often because we are putting pressure on board, but if you need to clear a board really effectively, especially with Grand Cross, having a board wipe that RFGs is very nice. A single copy of Twin Swords because, again, being able to top deck something is really nice, and it is a 1-drop, so it's very easy to be able to cast off Excalibur while still having Will for something else. 2 Chronos, the linchpin of the lockdown, as you saw. As a reminder, each Chronos kind of has its own pool of lockdowns, which is why you can kind of continually lock your opponent out of spells and resonators and stuff, provided you are continually flickering and recycling the Chronos. And then a single copy of Liz to round it out, just so that Grand Cross is also sometimes a cancel, which is nice. Going back into the main deck, again, we've made some changes. First off, we're not playing, there's no Wings of the Archangel. It was kind of greedy. It was a card that we weren't really needing it most of the time anyway. And the more quick cast stuff we can have, the more we can play in the upkeep to be able to also protect the playing of Excalibur, because you need that to resolve. So we're playing a couple of Silmaria plus Dancers of Spirits, so that we can lock our opponent out, especially on a turn where we want to be able to use the Regalia if we need to, or really resolve a Grand Cross for game. 3 Lumia, this is a new card addition. We can play the black version really easily. Also is more draw power, life gain. In the grind game, this is very helpful card, as well as being that spot removal. We only have 4 ways to be able to cast it, but still most of the time we're casting it on the white side anyway. 3 copies of Intimidation, just in case Grand Cross isn't really online right now, or we're dealing with things like Violet. 2 Aura of the Sacred Sword. One of the things we noticed is that targeted removal of Faria can get a little bit weird, as well as providing some draw power. There are also things like permafrost, which are very, very problematic from like Wolfgang. So things like this that are free, that allow us to kind of give everything barrier, also cycles, is very, very nice. So it also protects everything, not just, and you, the player, as well. So this is also really nice against, like, you know, the Violet spell, to not take the damage if they're targeting the face, right? 4 Dolly, obviously it's linchpin of the deck. 4 Grand Cross for the same reason, and 4 Excalibur, as we said before. 2 Sacred Wave Blade, because it is a wonderful way to deal with additions. It RFGs things, which is nice. We don't have to worry about Eternal, which is things a good card in general. 2 Awakening of Zero to give our board Eternal. So you can see we have 2 ways to give Eternal and 2 ways to give Barrier, both very, very cheap. 2 copies of Genesis, because it can help us pay for Strangers, as well as Mage Arts, because we can't cast Mage Arts any other way. And Lenneth's Wish is a Mage Art, so that's kind of important. 4 Road to the Sacred Queen, as we said before. 2 copies of Yggdrasil's Grace to be able to do the Chronos loops, kind of triggering out, where you can like target the first Chronos with Lenneth's Wish and then chase it with Yggdrasil's Grace to end up with 2 Chronos at the end of the turn, because Lenneth's Wish is 2 separate sentences. And this is also, Lenneth's Wish is a great way to be able to turn your Dolly plus Lenneth's Wish into the utility choice of anything from your Stranger deck, which is huge. You just get a lot of stuff there. And then 3 copies of Heroic Spirit of the World Tree, just for some extra draw power, and being able to play your Regalia while still leaving up other will. One thing I did mention is that we now have teched in a Valkyrie instead of a Honier, specifically because this also hits this can force us to be able to get things like Lycion. This can also hit things like, again, those demonic worlds. We just didn't have a lot of good addition hate in the main, and turning into 1 Valkyrie, with especially with Grand Cross, is just like, hey, Grand Cross can sometimes just steal 3 things, which is just really, really good. So that is the deck. Absolutely a blast to play. If you're looking to still play Regalia, or if you're really interested in just trying to make use of Dolly in a really interesting way, I definitely recommend giving this deck a try. I had an absolute blast designing it and talking about it and teching it and flushing it out, and it's just probably one of my favorite builds that I've done in a really long time, especially since I kind of just built it from the ground up myself, and then walked in and showed everybody, and pretty much everyone I've shown has really enjoyed it. So try it yourself out. I'm sure you're going to have a great time. And until next time, this is DMO73 saying, class dismissed.